So last week we went to the Bromsgrove Spa Hotel. I'd been told by local residents that recently the hotel had been filled up with illegal immigrants.
Hi guys, Yazz here, and I've just been watching the latest episode of Nigel Farage is Racist. Oh no, Nigel Farage hates immigrants. Nigel Farage Investigates, which is a programme he does on his YouTube channel. This particular episode was subtitled From the English Channel to Anfield Stadium.
Nobody wanted to talk about this, but I tell you what, they're talking about it now.
An invasion! That is the terminology Nigel Farage used earlier today on Twitter. He shared footage of a rubber dinghy arriving at a beach in Britain with about 5 or 6 immigrants in it, and they were getting out onto the beach and obviously probably going to hide somewhere or do whatever these poor people do. He termed it an invasion. He got in a lot of trouble. People were being quite rude to him about it. And obviously he's trying to stir up emotion and stir up this issue. And he's doing the same thing in his Nigel Farage Investigates mini-doc. Is that what we call it? Mini-doc? I suppose it is a mini-documentary.
But interesting, isn't it, that the Home Office talk about finding permanent solutions. There is almost an acceptance in the Home Office that if you come to this country, you will be allowed to stay.
This episode finds Nigel Farage in the northwest of England, driving around in a very, very plush, very nice looking Range Rover, and he's going to various hotels in the northwest which he believes are housing illegal immigrants. So he visits the Chimney House Hotel, he visits the Chester North Mercure Hotel, he visits the Holiday Inn in Hoylake, and in these hotels he's finding the same issue. The car park is empty, but the hotel is apparently full. And Nigel Farage believes the hotels are full of illegal immigrants. But he can't find out because no one will let him into the hotels. He believes the government have given money to a body called Serco, whose job it is to house the illegal immigrants, and because they don't have anywhere to put them at the moment, they're putting them in all these hotels which are empty, most likely due to the pandemic. So far, so not very shocking, because I kind of assumed, well, people have got to be put somewhere, and I like to think that in this country we are nice, that we do nice things, and we treat people nicely. So we have to take care of people while they're here. Whether they're illegal or legal will be sorted out, I presume, through the process of the law, etc., etc. But obviously, as we're in the midst of a pandemic, they need to be put somewhere. They can't just be roaming the streets. And I think, hey, I guess if you put them in hotels that are empty, it's better than the hotels just being empty. I'm sure loads of people would disagree with me on that, but I'm just saying that's my opinion. But things get a bit more, well, strange when he starts talking to some of the residents of Hoylake who tell him what's been going on with some of the illegal immigrants.
But when it was discovered that they'd been taken over to Anfield...
To what?
Anfield, it's the home of Liverpool football.
I know what
club.
Anfield is. What do you mean they were taken to Anfield?
Well, someone in their wisdom thought they might enjoy a day out. So there's thousands of kids around here who'd love to do something like that, but these lucky men got to do it instead.
What do you say went to Anfield?
They went for a guided tour.
What, all round?
All around the stadium, into the dressing room, through the tunnel, saw the famous Anfield sign, all of these things, yeah.
A charity, who aren't mentioned by name in the video, but are called A Heart for Refugees, had decided to take a group of the refugees to Anfield Stadium as a treat. I.e. they go, they visit the famous stadium, they get to take some pictures, see the changing rooms, and then they've had a day out. They've seen a very famous landmark of this country, and Nigel Farage and his various buddies in the video are not happy about this. Obviously they're thinking, well, why should they get this treat? People in this country haven't had that treat, so why should these people get it? They're not even from this country, etc., etc. In fact, Nigel Farage says himself that it's sending out the message that if you come to this country, you could end up playing for the Premier League. And that's the message we're sending out to refugees. Come over to England, you get free money, free room and board, you get to go out on nice day trips, and you could end up in the Premier League. I don't really think that's the message we're sending out, but that's the message he thinks we are sending out.
And the message is, come on down, get into the country, hotels, 40 quid a week spending money, full board, trips to Anfield, who knows? Come to England legally, you might even play in the Premier League. I mean, that's the message that we're sending out. It's stone bonkers.
I did find this quite a hard video to watch. Not necessarily because of the content, but because of some of the attitudes towards the people coming to this country. One of the residents of Hoylake says, oh, the people who come here, the illegal immigrants, they're well fed, they have mobile phones, they dress well. So, there seems to be an implication there that because people look a certain way, i.e. they don't look disheveled, they don't look shell-shocked, they don't have blood running down their face from some weird, explosion or bomb from their country, that they don't need any help and they are completely here for the wrong reasons and should be shipped home. And the thing is that annoys me really about this video is that at no point is Nigel Farage offering any great idea to solve the problem. He's just saying, here's the problem, isn't it terrible?
And I have to say, we're not looking at impoverished looking chaps here. We're looking at young men in their 20s, maybe a little older, maybe a little younger in some cases, well dressed, well fed, well cared for, which they're all good things.
I think of my own experiences in this kind of area because for a period in my life I did work with quite a lot of young people, and I remember at the particular job where I was working with young people, one day we had a group of Syrians come in, and they were all Syrian refugees. They'd come from Syria, from the war zone in Syria. They were all young men aged between 18 and 25. They all looked perfectly normal, well groomed, well dressed. They didn't seem at all, from the outset, from the outward appearance, they didn't seem at all different from you or I. And I spent several hours with them working on a project before they had to go. And I remember that once you got past the fact that they were, they looked normal, you started to realize that they actually weren't. That the situation they had come from and the experiences they had been through had really changed them. I remember one young man I worked with, he was so timid. He was a big guy, he looked grown man, but he was so timid. He was so shocked from what he'd seen. When I asked him about Syria, he didn't even want to really talk about it. You could see him getting nervous, getting pale, getting clammy. It was very, very upsetting to see. So the point I'm trying to make is that just because people look a certain way, it doesn't mean you know what they've come from. And I also think that some of the people landing on our shores illegally have come here illegally for a reason, i.e. where they've come from, they can no longer survive, they can no longer exist. And I just get very nervous that the general message that people want to send out is that, well, they shouldn't be here, so just tell them to go away. And I don't think that's really particularly compassionate. I think that's quite unfriendly, and I wish people would just say, well, hang on a second, we should find out where have they come from. If we send them away, what are we sending them back to? Where are we sending them to? Why can't we just be a bit more understanding of what situations people may have come from before we decide, okay, they shouldn't be here, the government are doing the wrong thing, ship them back to wherever they came from, or give them to another country, we don't want them. I just don't think that's the right attitude to have. I think that's kind of really lacking in mercy and compassion, which as a Christian are two things I believe strongly in.